again for joining today's webinar. We are excited to have John Elstad, our SEO director, who will share all his findings on Google for Jobs and the update today. So before we get started, there are just a few housekeeping items I want to mention. First of all, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please type them in the chat box and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. And also the webinar is being recorded, so you will receive a recorded presentation within 24 to 48 hours of the webinar. And if you don't receive anything or have additional questions, just email us at wecanhelp@tmp.com. And without further ado, please welcome John.
All right, thanks very much. And hey everyone, John here with TMP. Nice to be with you all today. Very excited to go over some of the updates to the Google for Jobs search results and really how to approach them strategically. The second half of today, I'm also going to be diving into the changes in the job seeker behavior from the organic Google traffic since Google for Jobs has been live. Now that we've got close to 8 months of full data to take a look at, which is very exciting. So to jump right in here, first off, I think everyone on the webinar today should be familiar with Google for Jobs at this point, but just in case you aren't, you might want to start off by watching the keynote speech from Google's I/O conference back in May of last year, and also by watching the initial webinar that I did back in July of last year. In that one, I broke down the search results themselves, how Google built a large index of jobs to serve up within the Google for Jobs search results, how to be indexed within those search results, and quite a few more things in there. So, feel free to listen in today, but there are links on on the slide to both of these in case you want to, take a step back later on and get caught up. The second thing that I wanted to start off with today, and it's a question that I get asked quite often, and it's sort of, where is Google for Jobs live now? Is it live in my country? And I've been checking in with some of my colleagues in our global TMP offices, and so far there isn't widespread Google for Jobs search results in Canada, Great Britain, France, Germany, and Singapore. My colleague in Brazil did say that they've been seeing them live now, sort of widespread, not just beyond a few test accounts there. And by connecting with him, it led us to this following article here. Google launches its job search tool in Latin America. Surprisingly, I haven't seen or heard much from Google directly on their blogs or press releases or in the news about this. I've got a lot of alerts and everything set up and pay a lot of attention, but the Google for Jobs search results are also now live in Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, Chile, and Argentina. And Google's been pretty quiet about this. They've never really given any dates when the search results will go live in other countries. I've really only heard them say coming in the upcoming weeks and months. They haven't really given any reasons or timeline, like I said, but if I had to speculate, I would guess or assume that they're having some issues perhaps related to the various languages and the machine learning capabilities of the search results, and even different variations in English across different countries, which is why we're not really seeing it live in Canada or the UK, Australia yet that I'm aware of. There's different subtleties in language at a country level, and that could be, I don't know for sure, but that could be the thing holding it up. I guess it is promising to see these live in the Latin American countries go live recently. So I would expect these to go live in other countries to follow suit, in the quote unquote, upcoming weeks and months. We just don't have any clear dates, but wanted to kick off with that as well. All right, so let's take a look at where things are at today. Let's say I'm a job seeker and I go onto Google and I search jobs near me. What am I seeing so far? All right, so I jump on my laptop and I have ad. Oh, okay. All right, Google for Jobs are down here. All right, let's go take a look. Let's take a look on my iPhone, see what that looks like, just in case I was out and about. I've got ad, and a quarter of an ad. So no Google for Jobs search results. I showed those first couple ones as sort of a jest and joke. I don't want you to think that's the case for all search results. Those are some of the most generic keyword phrases that a job seeker could make. Obviously, companies themselves and job sites are going to bid on them. They want to have visibility for those keywords, which, if there are 4 ads on the top, it does push the search results down, depending on how people are bidding on those. But there really are, there are countless keyword combinations that yield no pay-per-click results like a few that you see here, or at most only 1 or 2 or 3. So for most queries, the Google for Jobs search results are really prevalent. And there still aren't any sponsored listings within those Google Jobs search results themselves. You're not bidding within them. You're bidding within the normal Google pay-per-click spots there. So the search results internally are all based the same organically based on the search query, as you see a few of them that are searched here. At the same time, Google's parent company, Alphabet, they're still publicly traded. Their goal is to make money. They've got investors and shareholders to please. So, it makes sense, that over time, as they continue to improve the organic job search experience, it may reinvigorate advertisers, to bid more heavily on job-related search queries, in turn making more money for Google. And at the same time, it's sort of a win-win all around, because it just so happens while they're doing this, they're also providing a much better user experience for job seekers in this process. All right, so the first thing beyond that I wanted to get into are some of the updates that Google announced back in November to the search results. And these updates came from user feedback over the first few months of Google for Jobs being live. And I think that's a really interesting point to call out, because Google does take feedback for certain things like their knowledge graph, maybe for, you can verify Google Places listings, and there are certain things that you can do. But receiving feedback on search results is not always the case, especially for their core organic search results. That's something that, as we all know, there are hundreds of ranking factors in the algorithm itself. Google's pretty quiet about exactly what they are. They're always tinkering with them. They're always changing. This is a little bit different than that. And they're specifically announcing improvements. I'll walk you through each of them real quick, and I've ranked them sort of in order of my perceived importance of how important each update is. All right, so first of all, Google now gives job seekers the choice of where they would like to apply for that job that they're finding. In cases like this, where the same job is found across multiple websites. So before this update within Google for Jobs, Google would only show one job destination. So they might find this one job here, this international trade internship. They might choose to show LinkedIn. They might choose to show Glassdoor or Disney's career site. They would tend to rotate these. From day to day, you'd see different sets of search results. I personally think this is the biggest update that they announced, because it gives the job seeker the ability to choose exactly the destination where they want to visit. So someone may really like using LinkedIn a lot. They've got their profile set up there. They use it day in and day out to connect with people. They might choose to visit LinkedIn because that's where they're most comfortable. Same with Glassdoor. Or they might choose to go directly to the source of the job, check out information from that company itself, maybe look at some other jobs at that company, more about what it's like to work there, some of the content that they might have present for the job seekers, and then apply directly through the company themselves. It's important, really, because it puts the power back into the job seekers' hands, which I think is a pretty big improvement in terms of user experience. And so I think the second thing that goes along with this is that it really helps ensure the greatest job visibility. So there may be some particularly hard to fill roles or maybe highly competitive jobs that a company is advertising across a lot of job boards. So when that happens, this will create multiple outlets for the job seekers across multiple sites. In this case here, You've got, Disney, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, but you could have CareerBuilder or ZipRecruiter, Monster. There's a large number that can appear within those search results, and a lot of areas that job seekers can go to. That's for, if they're paying to have those jobs advertised across a wide variety of platforms. But if the career site is optimized for Google for Jobs, it helps ensure that all of the other jobs will still be present and have visibility, whether they're present on the other job board sites or not. So it sort of casts a really wide net across different platforms, but just really casts a big wide net across all of the jobs to make sure that they're easily indexable and found within Google for Jobs. The second update here is the inclusion of salary data. So on the left, you can see aggregate salary information tied back to this material handler job. These salary ranges are pulled from a variety of sources like Glassdoor, PayScale that you see here. They also pull data from LinkedIn, Paysaw, and more beyond that. And this information is pulled in, or can be pulled in, whether the salary is or isn't defined by the employer themselves. If Google makes a connection between the job present and the salary information that is available for that type of work, they're going to pull that in, so that information is already present. But on the right here, you can see an example of a job that includes specific salary data and specific salary information tied back to that individual job. And this is tied back through the salary job schema that Google for Jobs now supports. And in the first webinar that I did, I covered the schemas fully. And if you're not aware of that, again, go back and check out that one. So by Google's own numbers, they say that salary information is missing from about 85% of job postings in the US today. And so, I'm sure most people on the webinar today sort of know that sort of tenuous relationship between employers and salary information, some of the potential downfalls that can come from including it. However, there are a lot of positives that can come out of including salary information as well, even a range, which the job schemas can support. So it doesn't have to be a singular number. You can put a range in here. So in this example, Randstad can use their salary information as a differentiator since the hourly salary is higher than other local employers found by CareerBuilder. So, this can help attract the best candidates, can streamline the recruitment process on both sides of the employment agreement. So on the flip side of not including salary info, just think of all the time, and it's almost like a cliche challenge, but think of all the time and energy put in towards interviewing great candidates, only to have the salary discussion come up at the very end and having that, not work out for that candidate that you're looking at who might be looking for some more. And I'm sure some of you on the line can think of experience where this has happened. More salary transparency up front can save a lot of time and money down the line. So Google is, I think, really trying to simplify that process here and how they display this within the job postings themselves. And their other goal here is really to take job descriptions up a level from what job seekers are finding and put them more in line with product information that consumers, expect today when they're shopping online. They're doing this by including things like commute time, the salary information, the salary ranges from third-party sources that we see here. That type of thing is a big step in that direction, giving those job seekers as much information as possible. Google, they're pulling in company reviews now as well from sites like Glassdoor, Indeed, CareerBliss. I've seen directly within the job listing itself, just giving more information directly to those job seekers on that job listing. So, it's clear that they're looking to provide as much information as possible. And the more that you can provide as employers, the more you'll take advantage of the Google search results that we have here. And so that got me thinking, and I wanted to look at the process, from a consumer perspective when it comes to buying a pair of socks online here on Amazon. So if I'm out at a store, I'll just pick up a pair of socks off the shelf, and that's about all the information I need to go into that purchase. But the amount of information tied back to Amazon product listings is, I mean, it's great, but it's almost to this ridiculous comical level for certain things. And I'll sort of walk you through this here from what this experience was like. At the same time, all of that information, all of that data helps build confidence on the buyer's end, which helps them take the final purchase step. If they feel good about what they're buying, they're going to go ahead and buy it. And that's why I think that's why they're in the position that they are today here. So say I come here onto Amazon, I'm looking for blue socks. The first thing I see, all right, we've got some gold toe socks. We've got 5,928 customer reviews of about 4.5 stars, which, wow, that's a lot of reviews for a pair of socks, and 69 questions that have been answered. That's pretty amazing. So next, I'm going to take a look here at the fit. Okay, 92% as expected, but should probably double check the size chart, just to be sure, see what it's made out of here. All right, we've got some more information though beyond that. Let's see what we've got. We've got a reinforced comfort toe. That sounds good. Cushioned foot, a nice thing for a pair of socks to have. Aqua FX responsive cotton sounds pretty cool too. Maybe I don't even want blue socks anymore. I can look at other colors, and this guy on the bottom, he looks pretty comfortable. All right, well, that might not be enough. Let's see what else we got. We've got a description that will really build this in. It's #1 selling item. That's nice. Again, we see the customer reviews. That might not still be enough. Let's read some questions about people. Are these too bulky for dress shoes? Well, that's good to know. Do they shed a lot of lint? No, that's also nice. More lint questions, and I can come down here and look at 61 more if I'm not feeling good yet about this pair of socks. That might still not be enough yet, though. Let's see what some of these top reviews are like. Craig here, 5 stars, 21.5 months. That makes me feel pretty good. But little Kaylee, she says it's not worth it. That's only 1 star. I'm gonna have to think about that. I'm not sure if I can get these socks. And I think she posted some pictures of the holes that came in the heel. So I don't know. I got to think about that. And really, I might want a different pair of socks, or maybe there's something else to go along with it. I mean, we're talking here about a pair of socks, and really, if you get back to it, what's the bigger life decision? Applying for and hopefully attaining a new job, or buying a pair of socks. I mean, and I think it's clear that the comparisons between the two, what Google's trying to do here to get to that level of sort of confidence before taking the next step. Because like I said, if I'm in a store, I just pick a pair of socks off the rack and I'm good to go. So as you can see, back to the job postings, the salary information here is highlighted right in the main search results now, alongside when the job was posted here on the left with the little clock icon, and the employment type, if it's full-time, part-time, internships, so on and so forth. For this query, all the top 3 search results include salary info, and I have an inkling that this is already being factored into the rankings. I would say just within the past couple weeks, this has been much more prevalent. There's been an obvious transition over the past month or two to last month in terms of the number of job postings that appear here. So I think Google wants to incentivize companies to include salary info by rewarding them with greater visibility. And in the end, the job seeker benefits from more transparency and a better idea of what to expect before they even apply to that job. So this is right up there with the applied destination. This is, I would say, just as important, or maybe just a little bit less. So here's another example of salary inclusion and prominence in the search results. And I got these just last week. I was searching a variety of different search queries to sort of measure the types of salary information that was coming up. And I searched the very generic query, jobs in Chicago. And Sitter City, they're not a client of ours. We did not build this site for them, but they're very transparent with the salary information in the job listings themselves. And they seem, at least from my perspective, to have an unnaturally large presence within the Google for Jobs search results, given the overall number of employers and jobs available in Chicago. One of these were the top 3 that appeared for this query, but once you click into the deeper search results, all 6 of these were taken from those main Google search results without really having to search too deeply within them. I'm not even looking for a caregiver or nanny position here. It's a very general search query. But again, at this point, it does seem that Google is starting to reward jobs that have salary info with this greater organic visibility. I think I'd love to try and work a more data-driven approach to this, but just from my experience, it seems to become more and more prevalent. All right, the third update in November was improved geographic searching. And so this has always been a bit of a challenge in the past for some of our clients who may be located just outside of a major metro area, in a suburb of a smaller city that receives less direct job search volume at the keyword level. So, in the past, and I mean like 5+ years ago, maybe going back, they tended to be overshadowed in the search results by companies that had a presence directly in those markets themselves and had very clearly optimized pages that would appear for a keyword like Chicago or New York City or Los Angeles, for example. And at the same time, since some of these employers located in a metro area didn't have the keywords present, at the same time, the core algorithm at Google's standpoint, they returned the most relevant results for that query, and it was harder for Google to always make the connection between those employers and the markets that they're in. So this update here really, changes that at a job search level. Those larger cities like Chicago, New York still receive much higher search volumes, Orlando in this case here, but job seekers can now expand that job search out by 2 miles or 5, 15, 30 miles, 60 up to 200 miles. So if they're searching in a metro area that they aren't too familiar with, say they're looking to relocate, they might not know some of these cities like Kissimmee or Winter Garden, Winter Park, Lake Buena Vista. They can automatically expand their job search radius out and find jobs up to 200 miles away from that city that they're looking in. So that really levels the playing field for some of these employers who might be located a little bit outside of a city. Those jobs, as long as they're easily found within the system here, they should be able to rank much higher for those now. Google also provides recommended suburbs like this here too. So you can search for jobs in Orlando, but then again, take a look at Lake Mary or Longwood or some of the areas around it just to see what might be available in those cities, around those cities, if they're not looking to work and live in the heart of a bigger city. So again, this is a very useful update from within the system for the job seeker, where you can see on top here, you can still sort by a wide variety of other factors like date posted or type, or even employers, company types. A lot of tools here, and goes back to that theme of giving more control, more power back to the job seeker to find the exact job that they're looking for. And lastly, there's the ability to save or bookmark jobs for application at a later time. You can see the little bookmark icon here on the jobs on the left. This is really beneficial for job seekers who just have a few minutes to check out some jobs, but not enough time to fully apply to them. So, maybe they're waiting in line for food or getting a car wash, waiting at the dentist's office, something along those lines. Before this update, they had to email the job back to themselves. They can share it on social media. It's not impossible. They can do it. It took a few extra steps to do that, but by bookmarking them now, they're available across devices that are associated with their Google account. So if they find it on their smartphone, they can come back to the laptop later. And so if they're in one of those situations, they can bookmark a handful of jobs on their smartphone very quickly, apply to them at the desktop later when they get back and they have some more time. The mobile application process has improved, continues to improve, but many people, I think, still feel comfortable applying at a desktop or laptop computer. It's sort of like, scoping out a flight or a vacation on your phone, but then when it comes down to putting on the credit card and booking that, I still think a lot of people do those big purchases from a laptop or a desktop. It's just sort of a level of familiarity there. And I think that extends to jobs. Since the index of jobs on Google is always changing, I think, it's not always the easiest thing to find the exact job that you looked at before quickly. And this update, being able to bookmark and save them, helps solve that problem to keep those jobs in front of the job seekers. So really all four are pretty big updates, and they're really helpful from a user perspective. Sort of the theme there with them all is sort of giving control back to the job seeker within the search results, which is really interesting. But the second part of the webinar today, now that we've gotten through the updates, looks at some of the behavioral data findings across our network of Talent Brew career sites. So I had the opportunity to present similar findings back at the ERE conference in October, which looked at the first few months of behavioral data after Google for Jobs went live. And so this looks at those same trends and points, but the benefit that we have now is that we have just about 7 full months of job seeker data, as opposed to, I think we just had just under 3 months at that time. So we want to see how the patterns have changed with a bigger data set. So I'll go ahead and get into that. The measuring stick that I approach this with from a data perspective goes back to one of the main goals that Google stated in their I/O Developer Conference, which I shared the link for earlier. They addressed this disconnect between talent, available jobs, and employers, and they said that they wanted to better connect employers and job seekers through this new initiative, Google for Jobs. And the data points that we'll look at, I think, should help explain and show if Google has been able to do this so far. And so just to be clear, the data that I'm looking at here comes directly from Google or Organic to the Talent Brew career site. As we looked at earlier, job seekers can choose their ultimate destination from the Google for Jobs search results. So this data doesn't take a lot of these third-party sites into consideration. And yes, it's possible and likely that a lot of job seekers can go from Google to, say, Glassdoor back to the career site, but it's hard to quantify those visits accurately because it sort of strips off that tracking parameter and doesn't clearly tell us that they're coming directly from Google Organic. Some colleagues of mine here at TMP, we're looking at data in a lot of different ways, a variety of different studies to take a look at sort of the bigger picture scope of how Google for Jobs has impacted the entire landscape. But for today, we're just looking at Google Organic as the main traffic driving source to our career sites. And this helps us isolate where those job seekers are landing on the career site, to track performance accurately, and to maintain that level of quality of the data that we're looking at here. All right, so what we looked at here was about approximately 250 career sites. And the aim that I had was to measure Google Organic career site job seeker behavior in a pre-Google for Jobs world versus a post-Google for Jobs world. Since this has been live in the US only since June 20th, I did remove all foreign top-level domains. We do build career sites in different countries, different languages. As I showed earlier, it's now live in Latin America, South America. That's more recent, so those were removed from this study. We're only looking at United States Talent Brew career sites here. And in looking at this, we measured over 83.7 million sessions from 48.3 million new users, new job seekers. So we're looking at a very large data set here. much bigger than we had back when I spoke at ERE in October. And so that should help solidify some of these bigger patterns, like I said. We also broke out the Google Organic overall, so just a Google Organic visitor to a career site versus those that land directly on a job page, to look how that behavior was different. And the timeframes that I looked at here were June 20th, 2017 to January 16th, 2018. And I compared that to the period directly before. So November 21st, 2016 to June 19th, the day before 2017, to get sort of a really up-to-date before and after user behavior situation from Google organically right before that date switched and it went live. But we also took a look to the previous year, so June 20th, 2016, January 16th, 2017. That looks at a year-over-year comparison, which we prefer to do a lot of times, because what it does, it takes out natural seasonal job search volumes that exist throughout the year. But there are also company-specific job search volumes for, say, retail clients that have a bigger holiday push, or maybe a theme park outdoor client of ours that might have a big push in the spring and early summer, but lower in in the winter months. So it takes that out and gives us two different time frames to compare against, to look at how Google for Jobs data stacks up to both of these time frames. And so the first thing I took a look at was on-site behavior. So just looking at overall pages per visit. So on top here in sort of the peach cell, which you'll see here throughout, that post means during Google for Jobs. So the average Google Organic visitor in the Google for Jobs era spends 3.43 pages per visit on a career site. Right before that, it was 3.81, and last year was 3.73. So that has sort of narrowed as well. That sort of difference between the two, it's sort of come down, it's been tighter. So this points to more of an inside-out navigation experience, which makes sense. It's a valid sort of assumption, but the data supports it as well. More job seekers are landing on a job page and then navigating out from there, as opposed to landing on a home page or a deeper page and then navigating to a job that they're looking for. It's not a major difference, but it is there. The bottom one here where it says post JD, that means post job description. This actually surprised me because it's about as narrow of a range as you can get. It's still 1.91. The previous year, anyone that landed on a job description was also 1.91, and the time frame right before was 1.9. I mean, this is basically the same before and after, and this actually came down from what we looked at in October. Before then, it was closer to 2 pages per visit after Google for Jobs, and the other ones were, I believe, quite a bit lower. So again, that supported landing on a job page and then going out to look at other jobs or look at more content or just visit the site from there. But that's really come down to just to be about exactly the same across all time frames that we looked at, which is an interesting point. The next thing I looked at was new user behavior. And so overall on top, so overall visitors from Google Organic are slightly lower than before Google for Jobs. So it's 56.7%. Right before was 57.8. Last year was 59.3. I think part of this could be that some of the traffic is being diverted from Google for Jobs to those third-party sites. That's sort of lowering the overall number of new job seekers that land on a career site from Google Organic. But the bottom one, I think, is really telling. So after Google for Jobs, new job seekers landed on a job 51.7% of the time. Right before that, it was 39.3, and the previous year was 39.6. Again, this range sort of tightened up in the previous time frames from what we looked at in the fall. But here it's about 12 percentage points more. So you're getting more new job seekers landing directly on jobs than at any time from Google directly previously. And that definitely does align with Google's goal of connecting the right jobs to candidates more effectively. So before Google for Jobs came along, job pages were still indexed, they were available, they would be returned for certain queries, but the search results and the ability to process them previously wasn't at the same level it's at today. So I think that's the first data point that jumps out to me as significant here. The apply-click behavior, so sort of taking that next step from reading the job to applying to it on the career site is the next thing I wanted to take a look at. And excuse me, overall, the apply-click rate is 3 percentage points higher. Again, this range tightened up previously too. They're about the same exactly now, 23.08 and 23.1. That's up 3 percentage points to 26.28, so just over a quarter across all Google organic visitors now. The bottom one here is really jumps out to me though. It's really significant, where previously it was in a range of 18.7 to 18.8, roughly just the same. That's all the way up to 37.85%. And I think there's two main reasons for that. And the first one is that preview pane that we take a look at. That includes the salary information, the Google map, if full address information is included there, the company reviews, salary ranges, and everything. Job seekers can sort of preview that, and they don't have to take the next step at that point. So it allows them to sort of sift through more jobs quickly, especially on like a smartphone. But the second point that I think that is just that the job search results are getting better. For certain queries, the right jobs are getting in front of the right job seekers directly much more often. And this has resulted in, a doubling of the apply click rate, all the way up from 18.5 or 18.75 all the way to almost 38%. So I think that's a really telling piece of data here, that job seekers are getting to those jobs much more effectively and finding the right ones. And then lastly here, I wanted to get a sense of the overall destination impact across all these millions of visitors. What impact has Google for Jobs had? Did it greatly expand? Is it 50%, 75% of job seekers landing on job pages from Google now? And I was a little bit surprised at what I found here. And so in this post Google for Jobs world, or current Google for Jobs world, only 17.17% of job seekers land directly on a job description from their Google query. So in other words, 83% of job seekers still land on a page outside of a job description. Compared to the previous time frames right before, it was 10.26. Previous year was 9%. So it definitely is growing, it's higher. But there's a few reasons why I think this is happening here. And one, I think job seekers, a certain percentage will just bypass these new search results altogether. If you think about going on Google and searching for a flight or a hotel, you're shown search results that you can look at directly there. But I think a lot of people are comfortable skimming past that and looking for a site like Orbitz or Kayak, Expedia in the search results that they are familiar with. And I think you'll get some of that here too. Some people just skim right past them and go into the main organic search results. In some cases, the career site can actually outrank these new search results. If it's a branded query, very location-specific, category-specific type query, the career site can actually outrank the Google for Jobs search results and will lead to a visit on one of those pages. I've mentioned it a couple times, but we are unable to directly capture data from those Google for Jobs listings, so the third-party sites that we've talked about. So a certain percentage of that at the job level, at least initially, directly from Google would be sort of lost to those sites here, which is probably impacting this overall number that we're looking at. And then lastly, some of the queries that job seekers can make, sort of the queries around the edges and more conceptual type of queries, not job-focused queries that will generate Google for Jobs search results. We're still capturing a lot of that traffic. So if someone's saying, what are the benefits of working at company A, or what is it like? What qualifications are needed to be a software developer in the city? And just however you have content geared around those concepts, they're not going to generate the Google for Jobs search results, but will still rank the content if it's optimized for those phrases. So I think it's sort of a number of all of those things put together. And so to go back to that question, is Google accomplishing the goal of better connecting employers and job seekers through Google for Jobs? I think at this point, it definitely does point to the fact that they are. A couple of those data points that really jump out are the number of new job seekers finding a job directly. And the biggest one is that apply-click ratio compared to the time frame before Google. The search results are improving. They're getting in front of those job seekers, and those job seekers are taking the next step to go through that process. So from a recruitment marketing standpoint, and having 7 months or so worth of data, Google is moving in the right direction for sure. And then lastly, to wrap things up, just with some general thoughts of sort of what things were like before Google for Jobs and what things are like today. Before June 20th of last year, there was a huge index which was compiled of all websites that Google can find, which there are billions and billions of websites now. Any website from an SEO perspective was competing against every other website that existed out there, and the algorithm to sort those results was the core Google algorithm. So you're not specializing in anything at all. You're looking to rank within Google's core search results, which are designed to process every single query that can get put into Google, and that's a very large task. It's very difficult. From there was you had the fixed results on the main page of Google directly. You had 8 to 10 search results based on the query. They weren't sortable at all. Before then, Indeed was very top spot dominant, which I talked about last time, and they still are. The search results themselves are changing though, and the focus is more on Google for Jobs. So it sort of pushes the traditional organic search results down a bit. But it was hard to rank for a lot of keyword strings, especially some of those keyword strings that were very competitive. Today, and now and in the future, the index is smaller that we're focused on here. It's only jobs, so it's a very specialized index of search results. The algorithm that processes these is more targeted. Instead of trying to understand any query that gets put into the box itself, Google's AI can determine that it's a job-related search query that generates the Google for Jobs search results, and those particular search results are targeted based on a machine learning technology that is geared towards processing search or job title search results, which is fascinating. The results within that system, you still have the top 3, but you can easily click in and sort those jobs directly within that system. And as we talked about today, you can now have the choice of where you want to apply for that job, which was the number one, sort of the biggest change to the Google search results, Google for Jobs results here. So beyond that, you do maintain those current organic results achieved outside Google for Jobs. And as we've seen, 83% of job seekers are still landing on different pages. So it's not that this has just sort of made everything obsolete. It's changed things dramatically, of course, but the overall strategy isn't only Google for Jobs. It's much bigger than that. It's a more holistic strategy that everyone should be paying attention to. I think moving forward, I think we can definitely expect to see further improvements to the user experience and the functionality. The 4 updates that we had talked about today are 4 really pretty major ones that have been put in place in a relatively short amount of time. So I'm very excited to see where things will continue to progress, how we'll continue to adapt and evolve and to strategically take advantage of things. And then lastly, the machine will continue to learn. So, the machine learning technology, in theory, or in practice, will get smarter over time. And so it'll be very interesting and very exciting to see how the search results change, how they'll improve based on the types of queries present. That's something that we're definitely paying close attention to as the massive amount of data is fed back into the machine to continue to learn. So in theory, the job search results should continue to improve, and I look forward to revisiting some of these data points in the next 6 months or the next year to look at how the patterns even change. When we have a full year's worth of data from Google for Jobs and comparing that to the previous year right before, I think that will be very telling and give us even more information to focus on. So maybe we'll schedule a follow-up one at that point. But I wanted to thank everyone for your time today. You can find my contact information here in case you want to reach out to me directly or connect on LinkedIn. You can also reach out here to TMP at wecanhelp@tmp.com with any business needs related to media, metrics, Google for Jobs, optimized career sites, or anything else that you may have questions about. But I think from there, we'll go ahead and see if we've got any questions. Let me pop this up real quick, and we'll go ahead and take a look. All right, so let me run up to the top here. And just sorting these out real quick. All right, so first question, what can an employer do to increase the presence of their jobs on Google for Jobs? One second here. I think we had another one just pop in. I just want to make sure I have it. Okay. So what can an employer do to increase the presence of their jobs on Google for Jobs? Well, I think fully utilizing the schema information. So there's a set of required fields and a set of recommended fields that you can include in your job listings. I think what Google's goal is to show the most complete listings that are available, sort of like that product listing for the socks that I looked at. I mean, the more and more information that you can include in the job, the better, especially when it comes to things like salary. As we had shown here, there in the Sitter City example, I think even recently that's becoming more and more of a ranking signal. And Google wants to show, one, the most relevant jobs to job seekers, but two, the ones that are going to have the most complete information. So as employers, I think it's as crucial of a time as any to really rethink about the job descriptions and the information that you're including in there and the value that a candidate might receive from reading that job description. Is Google for Jobs only showing in Google Chrome? What about Internet Explorer? I don't seem to see results in IE. I too have come across that. I've seen them in Firefox, Chrome. I don't know for certain if it's in IE or not. I haven't seen them as frequently. I would expect, I haven't heard many updates recently other than IE is going away at some point, so maybe Google's not focusing on it in that regard, but I too have seen that. All right, would you expect this to impact our SEO strategy for all candidate-facing content pages and search, or just job descriptions? That's a good question, and I think to answer that, to go back, what we're talking about here and sort of the strategies and schema information and including this information within Google for Jobs, that's only going to impact job description pages. But as I talked about, there are strategies outside of that from maybe a content marketing perspective or an inbound marketing perspective that organic search is a big component of. And there are job-specific schema, but there are other schemas that Google will utilized within the search results as well for things like events and so forth. So you're able to, if you're able to mark up different pages with different schema, then I would recommend doing that and building out those pages in an SEO-friendly manner. But for what we're looking at here, basically anything job description related is in Google for Jobs is just job descriptions. But it's, I think I mentioned it, it's one piece of a holistic strategy. Okay. This question here, what do we do if job sites like CareerBuilder outrank our organic sites for a job in Google for Jobs? I would, to me, that sounds like the organic site that you're referring to may not be marked up with the schema properly, or doesn't meet the XML sitemap guidelines. With those examples in the first update that I talked about today, the choice of apply destination, if that job is easily findable by Google within Google for Jobs and is seen across different platforms, where you say CareerBuilder here, theoretically it shouldn't outrank your career site or your organic site if your organic site meets all the the necessities to be indexed and rank alongside it. So I would go back and take a look at the jobs, run them through Google Structured Data Tool, look to see if all of those especially required fields are present, because if the required schemas aren't present, then Google may not index that job, and there's a very good chance that they won't index that job. So, okay. Another question here, and I think we've got about 5 minutes, I believe, so we should be able to get through a few more. But is the inclusion of salary data, or in the inclusion of salary data, how is the salary pulled up from the posting or from what employees, candidates have documented in Glassdoor? That's a good question, and it goes back to it goes both ways. So whether you define your own salary or not, Google's going to pull that in if it can connect the job title in question with salary data available from Glassdoor, Payos, some of the other ones, LinkedIn. There's salary.com, I believe, was the other one. If they find salary information from one of these other data sources that are related to that job title, they're going to show that range. And that's something that you really can't control. It just shows a range from the data available. The other piece of that, and to ask, how is the salary pulled up? You can define that from the posting itself. So you can define what the salary is if it's coded and marked up the right way with the salary job schema. And what Google will do is, in that example with Randstad that I showed, they'll show what that definitive salary is, or salary range for that job, and compare that to what they're finding across other employers. So I think it's a good opportunity to highlight that, especially if you're proud of the salaries you're paying. There's been a real common theme in the news lately about employers increasing salaries as a result of the corporate tax cuts. And I think if you're one of those employers, or if you're doing something similar, now's a really great time to build that salary information into your job postings, because it will be highlighted within Google for Jobs. And that could be more of a differentiating factor the more and more transparent more and more companies move in regards to sharing salary information. So, all right, let me take a look here. Stephen asked, does the number of apply areas affect the indexing? And I would say no. I mean, what it is it just gives the goal is if Google is finding the number of, or the job present across different areas in the index, it's a little bit different than they handle duplicate content, which is sort of an SEO buzzword. It's different in the way that they handle duplicate content that in the main search results. I actually think that Google prefers duplicate content in Google for Jobs because then it provides more flexibility and options for the job seeker. So I mean, if the question is, does it apply or does it increase the ranking? That's an interesting thought, which I haven't really delved into that too deeply. But I guess there might be something to Google. If there's an available job or job availability that can apply at multiple locations, maybe they would rank that job higher. But I don't think that they would actually do that. But in the core organic, the main organic search results, Google, if they see duplicate content across different websites, they'll likely just not index and rank one of those pieces of content. Whereas here, they're taking that one duplicate job pretty much and giving you the ability to apply across different platforms. Okay, let's see. We've got a couple more minutes, and I might be able to get to all the questions if we have time here. But Rex here asks, you have mentioned some guidelines for postings. Can you share links to those pages you're referencing? Yeah, I believe in the first webinar that I provided, there are links to those pages in there. And if not, I can add some of those links to the end here. There's some Google for Jobs developer guidelines that are the ones that I'm referring to. Okay, let me take a quick look here. All right, I think we've got a couple questions. How do you get jobs in Google for Jobs without paid media? Other than including salary info, what did that company in Chicago do? What does TMP do to help jobs in Google for Jobs for your clients? And what about Indeed and Google for Jobs competing? Google not taking Indeed.com job postings into account for Google for Jobs. So there are, I guess, a few questions there. I'll sort of break them out. The first one, how to get jobs in Google for Jobs without paid media. And that goes back to making sure that you've got a career site that is optimized with all the requirements in mind and being fed to Google for Jobs and Google for Jobs indexing that site. That's really the main thing you can do there. We have seen some instances where Google will pull jobs in that don't have all the requirements, but it's always best to include full schema information and everything else. And step one would be to make sure that your career site is optimized. Other than salary info, this is the second question. What did that company in Chicago do? The Sittercity one is the one I believe he's referring to. I mean, their job listings are optimized in that way that I talked about. So all the search results that were appearing for, excuse me, for them were from Sittercity.com. They were optimized, and they had salary information present. And as I said, I think at this point that salary info is likely an influencer of the ranking. So as a best practice, I would include the salary info to boost the organic rankings, or at least to give the job seekers a much more clear picture of what the job is all about in the beginning. So, excuse me. And then lastly, about Indeed and Google for Jobs competing. It is true, jobs from Indeed.com are still not present within the Google for Jobs search results. I mentioned that they still maintain those rankings that they've built up in Google organically in the main search results. They're a very dominant site from an SEO standpoint, so they do still have a lot of organic Google visibility, those jobs just aren't present within Google for Jobs. But like I said, there are company reviews from Indeed that do get pulled into the Google for Jobs search results. All right, I think we're out of time for today. I'll double check if there's any other questions. I'll be sure to follow up with them and get back to you. But again, thanks again for your time today. I hope you all learned a thing or two about this. And again, feel free to reach out to us here at TMP if there's anything else that we can help out with. So thanks much and have a great rest of the week.